Live from London, it's Plank of the Week with Mike Graham.
Welcome to this week's sparkling edition of Plank of the Week. It's 7 o'clock, it's Friday night, and so therefore you know what's going to happen. We are going to look back on all of the idiocy that's happened this week, and there's been plenty of it, by the way. We've only got an hour in which to do it. We might need to start extending the programme soon. But don't think, just because you think you might know who might win it this week, that person is going to do so, because he won it for the last 2 weeks in a row. Surely it can't be a third. But to help me figure out who should be the Plank of the Week, I've got a great team with me. I've got Kevin O'Sullivan, talkTV's very own. Of course, I've got Candice, Holdsworth, of course, one of the great commentators. I've also got Amanda Devlin from the Showbiz Department of The Sun, and I've got Mark Saggers, huge beast of the sporting environment, and of course talkTV's very own Sunday night presenter. The thing that we are fighting for tonight, of course, is this, the plank, which we might have to hand over to somebody at the end of this season. But let's start off with Kevin O'Sullivan. Kevin, who's your first plank?
My first plank, my nomination is the state broadcaster, the BBC.
And why not?
Purveyor of televisual crap that has the cheek and temerity to charge us nearly £160 a year for all its useless programmes. It is now, I mean, it's crossed the line this time. It's really lost the plot. It has now just released a 8-part podcast series by Shamima Begum, the ISIS bride terrorist. Yeah. And this, to give you an idea of the tone of this series, it's called I'm Not a Monster. Well, Shamima, I've got some bad news for you. Yes, you are. This is a woman...
It's not really, doesn't fit into the old... And here we are, pop pickers, you know, number 7, it's ABBA.
This is
number 6 on the podcast charts, it's Shamima Begum.
It's Shamima! Yeah. She's still there, number 4.
You know, formerly with the band, now out on her own, not the Beatles anymore. You know.
Straight in at number 1, it's Begum.
How many episodes there are?
You know, so this woman, you know, she fled the country when she was 15 with a couple of her mates, went to the caliphate, to the ISIS state, which was the sworn enemy of our country. She married an ISIS warrior. She had 3 kids who all died. She helped her warrior husband load his weapons. He then went out and killed people. When she was asked in her first interview what it was like walking past waste paper bins full of severed heads in the capital of the caliphate, she just shrugged her shoulders and just went, well, you know. Now she's busy, you know, because she's stuck in the Syrian desert and no one will let her come back. And she's also been stripped, of course, quite rightly, of her British citizenship. Now she's going, oh, I'm so sorry. I was only young. I was groomed. Well, I've spoken to people in that Syrian desert camp, and she's not any kind of an innocent victim. She's a prime mover. She apparently is in charge of all the haradans there that still plot against the West. She was completely complicit in the evils of the ISIS caliphate, the ISIS state. She's a terrorist, she's an enemy of this country, and we have to pay the BBC to be an apologist for this awful woman who must never come back. She's now 23.
Not to mention, right, the fact that they're now bankrolling whoever this guy is who's gone out to do it. You know, who, to be fair, is an independent journalist, and it may well be that he will do quite a good job, but they shouldn't be doing it. But they're coming from the side of the political divide, which says that she must be innocent. Because, you know, she can't be to blame for something like that because it's not her fault. She was only 15. These are the same people who say that you've got to listen to Greta Thunberg, even though she's only 15 or
absolutely.
was.
And the apologists for her say, oh, you know, she was only a kid. You know, and she's our responsibility. No, she's not.
No.
We took her British citizenship away. She hasn't got it back. She is not British. She is not our responsibility. So why is the British Broadcasting Corporation wasting our money to apologise for this awful little terrorist?
And it's not hard-hitting enough. I've listened to it. I don't like the tone. It's a bit too chatty for me. She needs to be challenged way more.
Yeah, absolutely right. Well, and also her husband's in prison in the Netherlands, right? Because he was a terrorist, because he murdered people in a horrible way. It wasn't just, you know, like, you know, he murdered them on the battlefield. You know, people, as you say, were beheaded, set on fire. Horrible things happened to them. If anybody's responsible for her, he is. Shouldn't she go to prison in the Netherlands with him?
Well, I think she should just be ignored.
Yes.
That's what they really hate now, is to be totally ignored. wiped off the face of any sort of media.
She's got better hair and makeup than
stays
me
in
now.
Syria, and that's
She's
it.
out there. She's got, every time you see pictures of her, she's had another makeover.
Yeah.
You know, she ends up looking like, you know, some kind of fashion model.
But, you know, you hear these people say, oh, she's our responsibility. Well, as I just said, we've taken her citizenship away, so she's not our responsibility. And this is what I think about Shamima Begum. She's stuck in that Syrian desert, and I could not care less.
No.
She can bloody well stay there for the rest of her rotten life. Why is the BBC apologising for this woman? I don't mind the idea of telling her story, but not in this way. Not in a podcast series that is entitled I'm Not a Monster. She is a monster.
Well, of course she is.
I can see it as a sort of spin-off. Like she goes in to do TV, documentaries and everything,
That'll
and
be
she ends up
yeah.
maybe the BBC's highest earner.
They probably would give her a job.
I can see
the BBC.
her being given all this
They'd
money.
give her a job ahead of any of us because, you know, she's got this life experience that we can share. Isn't that going to be
Absolutely
wonderful?
reveals also just how out of touch the state broadcaster, the BBC, is with its audience.
Yeah.
How many people around the country are going to go, great, there's a podcast series about Shamima Begum.
Yeah.
Give me a break.
I thought it was a joke when I heard
I
it.
know.
It's not a joke.
It really is.
Well, it is in a way.
She won't take responsibility for what she did, and the BBC no longer take responsibility for anything.
No, they don't. Absolutely right. And speaking of people who don't take responsibility for anything, let's have your first one, Amanda.
Prince Harry.
It's got to be done. It's an early shout.
That was
an
an
early
excellent
shout.
been up to
introduction.
there?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
he's
don't
been
know.
really laying
You might have
low,
noticed
quiet.
he's been on the TV a bit lately.
Firstly, I don't like to call him Prince Harry. I don't think that we should be calling him that anymore. He should be completely stripped of all his titles. I'm completely fed up of
Can we
talking
call him
about
Henry? Because that's
Oh,
his
yeah,
own
let's
I've
go
got a few
Henry.
ideas what we can call
Yeah,
it.
we've got
This is a family show.
So I don't know if I'm allowed to say this in our kind of woke world, but I did have a bit of a crush on Prince Harry. He was my
you?
gingerhead crush.
Right.
What,
Blimey.
was he kind to guide dog?
I just thought he was just cutesy and a bit of a bad boy and fun and
Well, he used to be,
cheeky.
yeah.
And he used to be. And now, I just think his therapist needs to be sacked because they've done a terrible job. Absolutely terrible
What
job.
sort of therapy is he having?
He's more angry and bitter than ever.
Californian therapy.
And
Well,
he,
you know, it's interesting because I was listening to Paul McKenna the other day on Piers Morgan's show,
Yeah.
and he was saying the problem with this therapy they give you in LA is you're meant to get the therapist to kind of package up your troubles and put them in a little satchel over there and then get rid of it and stop talking about it. But he keeps talking about it, he keeps going on and on and on about the same
Yeah.
thing. So they're not actually helping him, they're making him worse.
I think he's living life. He stayed maybe at 12 years old when
Yeah.
his mum died. I don't think he's moved on from that, and that is really sad. But you know, he's had a lot of other privileges in life, which I just think everyone's had a hardship at some
Well, it
point.
is sad,
and
but
the fact
everybody
that he
says
can't
that.
move on from that.
But everybody says that. But William also lost his mother.
Yeah,
You know, I know he was a
exactly,
little bit
yeah.
older, but, you know, you
I
don't
think
see any
everyone
of
says
this.
it as a caveat, but then actually when you go through what he's done to members of his own family, he preaches to be kind, and obviously the reason that we couldn't have worked, me and Henry, is because I work for the Sun.
It's
So
not all about
obviously
you,
I'm the
Amanda.
devil.
Yeah, and he hates you. Yeah, you'd have had no
hates
chance.
me, would never have worked. But you know, he is he's so vicious about other people. Yeah. And then wants everyone to say absolutely nothing bad about himself. And that just drives me mad
his
because
wife.
it's just all his wife.
His
And the way he
book's
says to my
fair,
wife.
it's a blame-all book.
Yeah.
Everything is
Yeah.
everyone else's fault. And the most shocking example of that is, you know, we all know about his Taliban kill count boast, very unwise.
Yeah, but you lied about that. You lied about it because
but
he
no,
didn't
but
make it say that
This
it
is
was
it. This
post.
is what he said. He puts it in his book, right? I killed 25 Taliban. And we all know that put a target on his back, his wife's back, his kids' back, the royal family's back, loads of our backs. Put loads of people in danger with that immature, very unwise boast. Puts it in his book. The press report it. He blames the press for causing the danger.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
And says that it was a lie that they published, when in fact all they did was publish what he published.
Exactly.
Just one thing
Which
for
bit of
me,
it was a
though.
lie?
I'm going to talk about personal problems that my family had. My mother died when I was a teenager, and I'd got a younger brother and sister. My father remarried within a year. Everyone thought he was seeing the person that he married before my mother had died. So we were in a situation like that, and she kicked both myself and my brother basically out of the house. My brother, younger than me, not much older than Harry, when Diana died, decided that he would go and live on the other side of the world, which he now has done very successfully with his family. And the only thing that I do sympathise Harry with is that I think Camilla and all of that outrageous stuff of Charles being her Tampax and all of this is, I mean, you know, I know when we think about
horrendous.
that, that was grim,
disgusting.
and all of that I think is part of it. As far as getting 20 million advance for doing a book and living in California, I'd be in California tomorrow with that.
Yeah, I know. But the point is that, you know, if you're born into the royal family, and I mean, people say, oh, but he didn't ask to be born into it. Yeah, but the fact is he was born into it. That's the way it goes. Yeah. You wake up in the morning, you're living in Kensington Palace, you've got a pretty nice life. There's somebody making you kippers and poached eggs in the morning and buying you all your clothes. You don't have to actually spend any of your own money.
And he doesn't want to let go of the
I heard you yesterday morning,
Yeah.
speaking to Isabel, was it?
Yeah, Isabel Oakeshott, yeah.
And you were talking about his habit with drugs and everything, and I thought you were making some really important points about...
Well, I think he has taken a lot of drugs, and people who have taken as many drugs as he's taken sometimes can feel a bit paranoid, sometimes can feel a bit screwed up, and I don't think it's a coincidence. You know, that I think he probably still smokes weed. I don't know, he lives in California. It's completely legal to smoke weed there. Why wouldn't you? And she, I seem to remember, in her first marriage, was handing out marijuana to all the guests at the wedding, wasn't she? So, you know, the culture is different over there.
In fairness, you've got to give him credit. It's hard to write a book when you're a junkie.
It is. Yeah, but you need the money, I guess, you know.
And also, he
For the drugs.
He can save this whole winter fuel crisis if we all just put this
I've been asked
book
to point
into the
out
fire and
that
just
he's not
get rid of
actually a
it.
junkie. Thank you, Kevin. For that.
You're going to get us sued.
Yeah, try it.
Yeah, well, he does actually. He's sued about 3 different people at the moment.
Is the wife, is she Canadian or American?
Well, she was born, I think, and raised in America.
She's American.
Good,
I
that's
think
the
LA.
other thing. Because not that I gamble, but I know that the rest of my family have all had bets from years ago that she will stand for president at some stage.
Well, I think she'd like to, but I mean, given the standard of people they've had as president, maybe she'll even get in.
Well, it'd be perfect.
You know,
I'll tell you what.
I mean, these are the same people that elected Joe Biden.
She definitely had plans. She just definitely had aspirations towards the White House, but they've been screwed up by this book. America will not allow a woman to go into the White House with a husband who's confessed to sort of serious drug use.
Yeah, no, I think that's right.
But when I was in the States, it was now July or August, the American people then, the only person they were talking about that they really hated, Camilla.
Yeah. And I think you're right to take us back to that time, because it was a very difficult time. But again, as I say, if you're in that, you know, fishbowl of the royal family, you don't then claim that you want to be out of it and then get back into your own fishbowl, do you? Which is what he's done, effectively.
The other thing, of course, is he's got time. He had so much time to take his time with all of this.
Yeah.
But, of course, she wanted everything yesterday, as those princesses do. I mean, I've interviewed a few of those sort, you know, and, well, you're going to get nowhere with them whatsoever. Whatever you do is not good enough. But if he had just taken time, he could have moved over there, he could have been sweet to everybody over here, he could have a fabulous life and be somebody that lots of people listen to.
He wants to be a rock star, that's the issue. The American interviews
Well,
that you saw
loves the
of him, he was
celebrity part,
talking to the audience. He kept, like, going, you know, and it was just so cringy.
No, he loves
Reveling in
the
the
thing
attention.
is he loves the celebrity
loves
part
it.
of being a member of the royal family. He just doesn't do any work. I mean, that's the difference.
Perhaps he's never been loved, though, since he was 12.
Maybe that's true. I actually saw a video on TikTok today of Diana with him when he was younger. And there's very much a point at which, and I know that you can edit these things, but there's very much a point at which, you know, you see her sort of scooping him up, where William's just kind of sitting there, you know, he's on the ski slope, she's helping him, not William, because he's the youngest, he's the baby, and that's sometimes what happens.
Well,
you know.
I'm halfway through the book, and it is well written.
You like the book, don't
It's
you?
a good read. There's no doubt about that.
I can't believe
I mean,
you
it's
said
full
that.
of rubbish, but it's a good read.
The current Mrs. Saggers is reading at the moment. She says the same.
What absolutely shines from the pages is he's obsessed with his mother, and he completely venerates her to an almost disturbing degree. He sort of says every time she walked into a room, the whole world lit up. She was an astonishing person. Well, I mean, she was an interesting person. She wasn't that.
She wasn't a saint.
He's obsessed with his mother, and you know, and for that we have to have some sympathy. It's not nice to lose your mum when you're a little kid in that way, but like William, I mean, frankly, Harry, it's time to get over.
Yeah, but he speaks about Meghan in the same way, in the same vein. She can't do any wrong. He hasn't done anything wrong, apparently, aside from, of course, getting frostbite on his todger, as he put it. which I would have thought...
even reminded him of his mum.
Which I would have thought is not something you one wants to admit to, but also it can't be true, can it? Because surely if you get frostbite, does it not fall off?
Did you? If you get
I've never had frostbite.
Oh, are you sure?
I don't go anywhere that cold. You know,
I thought you were talking with knowledge there.
You know,
Sorry, Mike.
But I had myself
the thing is, if you ever go to the Arctic, my
you.
advice is do your flies up.
Yeah. Yeah, don't get it out.
Don't walk around with it dangling out again.
Exactly right. Mr. Saggers, time for your first nomination.
Yes, it is. And just take this now. Steph and Tom, soon to become the Mouldings in July, because they're getting married. They have planned for 2 years this wedding. They've had all sorts of things that have delayed it through COVID and everything else.
Right.
And they were sitting down at the beginning of the new year with a little glass of beer with each other, and suddenly they got on their own Facebook the local hotel where they're holding the wedding reception on a Facebook message saying there'll be a phone call shortly. Your wedding's off with us.
Oh,
it's
great.
cancelled.
Marvellous.
So this is a hotel just outside Loughborough in the village of Corn, and it's known as the Corn County Hotel.
Is that what it's actually called? Is that the name of it?
And it's a 4-star
gone vegan?
hotel.
Eh?
Q-U-O-R-N, as in the hunt, obviously.
Well, sorry, I thought it was as in that fake meat.
No.
That's what I thought it used to be.
No, we're talking...
Used to be known
we're
as
talking the Leicestershire...
Used to be a beef eater.
Yeah, so...
Get it? Yeah, I did.
And they weren't given a reason why.
I bet I know the reason.
They weren't given a reason, but they found out the reason very quickly, of course.
I know.
And there were 17 other couples that have had their wedding receptions at this 4-star joint. It's a nice place. Have all been cancelled because Serco look as if they're going to be using, from a month's time, this hotel for asylum seekers. Now, Jane Hunt, the Conservative MP for Loughborough, was very straight on to this.
Really nice.
There we are.
Very
There
nice.
it is. There it is.
Lovely.
You know, she was straight on saying, I'm going to get to the bottom of this. This is happening. There are already 2 hotels in Loughborough that are jammed full of asylum seekers.
Yeah.
And she wanted answers. Well, she got no answers, and she gave everybody the usual pap about how she'll help this and do that and everything.
Yeah.
I went on the website myself. You can still book a room.
Normally with these places you can't. They won't let you.
No, well, they can now, but apparently it looks as if Serco and the hotel, they've jumped the gun. Have they got a contract coming through? Yes, they probably have. They have a real problem with this in that particular area where they're just dumping them on.
Yeah.
We have it that they're moving everybody out of London, thinking then that nobody elsewhere is going to complain about it.
Right.
Do you remember a guy called Peter Boyzo who invented Pizza Express?
Yes.
Who did an awful lot of philanthropic work with Peterborough. A beautiful theatre there, and he did up the Station Hotel at, obviously, Peterborough Railway Station. Magnificent old place.
Because they're nice, some of those old railway hotels.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
What's happened to... I mean, he's obviously now gone, sadly no longer with us, and it was ageing a little bit. It was still a great place to go, though. What's happened now? It is jammed full of Albanians who go from there across the little road and sit when I'll get a train back at 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning and start pestering people. And that is going on there as well.
Wow.
So I feel for the people getting married who are not now. What do they do? Where do they go? You've sorted all of that, and yet we're allowing asylum seekers. Oh, and do you know what the Home Office said to them?
What did they say? Sorry, we can't take your call. We're all working from home.
We can't discuss matters of government policy, but we can tell you that 5.6 million is being spent on these asylum seekers every year.
Yeah.
Do you really want to know that if you're just about to get married, having lived here all your life?
This is in the same week, by the way, that Rishi Sunak says that that's all finished. We're not going to do that anymore.
It's only just starting.
We're not doing it anymore. There's another place in Rugby, I think, which I got a notification, another place in Wolverhampton that people are complaining about as well.
Do you know how many hotels around the country are full of migrants right now? 440. And what's going on right now? Home Secretary Suella Braverman is busy looking for 200 more hotels. And Rishi Sunak's solution is, let's stop using hotels, let's start using holiday camps. Heidi High, what a brilliant solution, Rishi. Unbelievable.
I know, it really is. All part of his 5-point plan for making everything different in Britain. The only thing he didn't say was making everything worse as opposed to better. Well done, Rishi. Well done. He's definitely done that. I'm not sure if he's in the book this time, but we'll see. Coming up next, though, we'll be hearing from an ITV presenter who's found himself on Plank of the Week. Welcome back to Plank of the Week. What better way to spend a Friday night than with all of us trying to pick out who was the biggest idiot this week? It's going to be a pretty big competition. I can see it already. We're a quarter of the way through, and it's now time for Candice Holdsworth for your first nominee. Who is it, Candice?
So this week in tech censorship, it is Facebook.
Of course.
There were reports this week that Facebook did not allow The Spectator magazine to publish their cover story mocking Joe Biden.
Yes.
Basically showing up the wrong number of hands, because we all know Joe Biden's pretty gaffe-prone.
Yeah, he is.
So Fraser Nelson, the editor of The Spectator, said he has no idea who made this decision. He doesn't know why they've made it. It could be a bot, it could be a person. They've appealed. No one knows.
Because I saw an exchange between him and somebody on Twitter, because they answered his initial complaint, but then refused to answer his second question, which was, well, why have you done this? And I think I'm right in saying, is it not? Is he's doing something like, it's a picture, it's a cartoon of Joe Biden, and he's holding up like 5 fingers going, 4 more years.
Yes, yes.
This is very funny.
It's hilarious.
It's funny.
Yes.
But apparently this is offensive to the Facebook monitors.
See, we've got no idea what their reasons are. There's just this. There's now these invisible editors who work at Twitter and Facebook, and they make unilateral decisions, overriding journalists, overriding venerable publications, and also basically killing the culture of political satire.
Yeah.
And if we can't have political satire, we do not live in a free political culture.
We really don't. I mean, Twitter's got a bit better lately, hasn't it? Because
yes.
since Elon Musk took over, it's become slightly less prone to censoring, right-wing rhetoric. Yeah. But, I mean, The Spectator's hardly right-wing rhetoric. I mean, it's clever, it's interesting, it's a great magazine, and the cover, apart from anything else, is not in any way offensive. It's funny.
Yes.
Joe Biden can't even walk up a flight of stairs, never mind count to 5, so why can't you make fun of him?
We're not allowed to have a sense of humour now, though, are we? That's the actual issue.
Well, you're allowed to have a sense of humour about Donald Trump, though. You can make as many jokes about him as you like. It's just Joe Biden you can't, because
but they've
he's
pointed
a Democrat.
that out, right? And we don't know if that's the reason for it.
Yeah.
I mean, where Facebook is located, in California, it's a very strongly democratic
Aren't you supposed to call
state.
it Meta now, by the way?
Oh,
Yes, Meta.
Yes.
I mean, isn't it now Meta rather than Facebook?
But what's scary about it, though, is these tools are so important to journalism's business model.
Yeah.
You need it. You need it as a distribution
Of course you do.
platform, and you can't avoid it. And I think, for me, the most sinister thing is these technological tools, they seem like liberation, but now actually we see they're not. They're tools of restraint.
Well, also, it's what they say they're not going to do anymore, which always interests me. And there was a story this week from Instagram, and I think it might have been I can't remember if it was Facebook as well, but they're the same owner, right? Instagram said that they were no longer going to sell data collected from children to commercial organisations who might wish to sell things to them, right? So clearly in the past, that was absolutely no problem at all. Just pass on as much information as you possibly can. Because as people say about Facebook, you're the product.
Yes.
It's not them. They're making money out of you every single time you go on there. And I am staggered sometimes at the stuff that comes up on my phone. Even though I think I've got all the microphones switched off, and I talk about, I don't know, going off to Italy somewhere. The next thing you put Facebook on, here's a load of holidays in Italy.
Yeah, but that's
it's incredible how they do that.
That's all I get now.
Yeah.
My Facebook friends have become non-existent.
Right.
And most of the time now, I'm having to go in to justify why I don't want to see what they're sending me.
Yeah.
That's not what I joined up Facebook for.
No.
And the other thing was suddenly they're telling me how great I was in 2012.
Oh, yeah.
Shoving out some
disagree with
photographs
that.
and all
Yeah. Well, you don't think he was as great as he is
exactly.
now?
No,
he's much better now, it's true.
But all of this isn't Facebook anymore.
No.
This is somebody telling me what I've got to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what you want to buy, and here's where you can buy it, and all of that.
Yeah.
And, of course, the one great thing we've learned this week, though, about online shopping is that basically you can order as much as you like online. You
Never gets
get
delivered.
It never gets to you. It just keeps getting left in somebody else's doorway.
Elon Musk...
I've always not trusted online shopping. I know that's going to sound like I'm some old antediluvian git, but I just don't do it.
But to go back to Elon Musk, I mean, he's made Twitter better, and a few renegades have been allowed back who were banned for no apparent reason apart from the fact they weren't left-wing. But still, go onto Twitter, try and post it, as I regularly do, trying to call people an idiot or a moron, and it flashes up, are you sure you want to say this? Well, yes, I do.
I wish you'd stop commenting on my posts, by the way, because that's not the kind of language I expect from especially a friend of mine.
Well, I call an idiot, Mike. You know that, mate.
Do you know what, though? Humour is our way of life.
Of course it is.
We've taken the mick out of each other and what have you forever. We've dragged people down we love when they're getting above themselves with humour and other thing, and they have to understand about it. in California, they don't understand any of
that.
this.
That is the point, right?
No.
And they're dictating to us in our political culture what we can say, and it's these values are just being imposed on the entire world through these social media platforms.
Spotty-faced little
why-
nerds with backward baseball caps in Silicon Valley are judging what we can and cannot say. They are the masters of free speech, and they're shutting it down. And Elon Musk and Zuckerberg, if only he had the temerity, have to get to grips with this. These places are supposed to be
shut down your free speech?
forums
Go on about
for
it too long.
free speech.
I'm going to shut your free speech.
Yeah, well,
down.
you're an enemy of free speech.
Yeah, I am an enemy of free speech. This is my show, because we're talking about people who have been influenced by California. Prince Harry, who's already been nominated. I'm going to nominate Tom Bradbury, the bloke who interviewed him for ITV. And I'll tell you why, because there were some people who went, oh, it's such a good interview. You know, he'll be in trouble with Harry because, you know, he asked him a few tough questions.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I don't know if they've ever seen, you know, somebody actually who does give people tough questions to answer, because I don't think he asked him anything tough.
I agree.
When he said to him, what about the, you know, the major story that Harry left out of the book, the whole interview with Oprah Winfrey, right? The allegations of somebody in the royal family making a comment about the colour of Archie's skin, the hugest, biggest story 2 years ago, which has kind of hung over the royal family and made everybody think that there might be some racism inside Buckingham Palace. Not a mention of that. And when he says to him, well, what about the allegations of racism? Well, we never did that, says Harry. And Tom Bradbury's brilliant sort of answer as the world's greatest journalist was, right. Right? That was it. That was as far as he went. And then he said, no, that was the British press that said it was racist. Clearly that wasn't true. Yeah. We played back to back the interview. We saw what she said. Yes, she did not use the actual word racist, but she said there were troubling comments made by a member of the royal family, who will not be named, about the colour of Archie's skin. Now, if that's not an accusation that somebody was racist, I don't know what is. But he let him off the hook. He let him just say, no, that's not what happened.
Harry's told him to let him off the hook?
Well, do you know, we
had
actually
to submit the questions. You had to
Yeah.
Well, no, that's not true, because we had said that. Angela Levin suggested that was true. We got a complaint from ITV, which actually makes Tom Bradbury an even worse journalist, because if they didn't have to submit the questions, why was he not asking better questions?
Even better point. What about the Taliban?
Yeah, well, exactly.
You didn't mention the Taliban.
I'm not a fan of it. I don't think they're in it this week, the Taliban.
Well, the other thing with this, of course, is why was Tom Bradbury, who's a reasonable presenter...
Well, he's a newsreader.
But he is a newsreader. He reads the Autocue. Exactly. That's why he's got the job. The one thing, I don't know about you guys, that I've had to do over 40 years in sport is I haven't got close to people I know eventually, if they do something wrong, I'm going to have to ask them hard questions. So Fergie, I was at the class of 92's Christmas party. I was Fergie's best friend. Cantona then jumps into the fans at Crystal Palace, and that's it.
Yeah.
Fergie didn't speak to me for 10 years, tried to ban me forever from Old Trafford and what have you, but I had to do the story.
Yeah, of course you did.
And
that's
still
your job
do.
as a journalist.
That's the job.
His job
I'm not there waltzing on the red carpet hoping I'm going to be in the next series of Love Island.
Right.
I actually want to ask the questions that find out why so many of these people are able to hide
because
so much.
Sometimes when they don't answer it, or they answer it in such a way that you can see that they're lying, that's why you ask the question.
Exactly.
Right? And somebody said, oh, he didn't want to upset him because he might have got up and walked out. Well, that would have been a great way to go.
Would have been great.
Yes.
Didn't mention the Taliban kill count boast, which was an egregious omission.
Yeah.
And the big question here is, why did America get better interviews with Prince Harry than we did? Anderson Cooper, Michael Shahn, and
the other guy,
Robbie Colbert, or whatever his name is. They all did better. They all did Colbert. Yes.
Colbert. Because he's American. My name is Colbert. It's the same as when you go in
from the Late Show.
Would you like when you say you go into a steakhouse? Would you like a fillet?
Yeah.
No. I'd like a fillet steak. All right.
Do you know what they call turbot? Turbo.
Listen, you're eating into your own time.
I thought you were going to say you'd like a Colbert.
Yeah. Colbert.
But they did better interviews than Tom Bradbury.
Yeah.
Totally.
Well, that's why Tom Bradbury's up there as Plank of the Week. Right, your next one, Kevin.
Unilever, who produce a lot of products, big corporation. One of the products they produce is Lux soap. They've had the temerity to promote that by saying if women use Lux soap, it will wash away sexism. It will give them a coat of armour that prevents sexism.
What?
Huh? How? How on earth does a bar of soap protect sexism? But this is typical of Unilever, the most woke corporation on the face of the earth. Unilever, of course, another one of their products is the god-awful ice cream Ben & Jerry's.
Yeah.
You know, solving political problems around the world, one ice cream at a time. So they have all these products.
Empower mints.
Yeah. There's the hang on, the ice cream van's here. So ludicrous thing for them to do, ludicrously woke. Yeah. And so you go, oh well, at least they are a woke corporation. No, they're not. They are one of the very few corporations in the world that has refused to pull out of Russia because of Ukraine. And why haven't they pulled out of Russia? Because there's a lot of blood money to be made there. Hypocrites.
Yeah.
Hypocrites.
Well, they're also, I'll tell you how unwoke they are, because in Ben & Jerry's headquarters in Vermont, USA, which used to be a kind of mum and pup style place before it got bought over by Unilever, guess who they employ to make the ice cream? Yeah. A load of migrants who come from Central America who work for minimum wage. Yeah. So they're not really helping them out. And also in India, they sell a product which is for whitening of the skin to people in India who want to look a bit less brown. So, I mean, this is a very ridiculous company.
You're right.
But, I mean, you and I put out our own Ben & Jerry's, didn't we?
We did an advert.
Can we have a look at it?
Introducing Mike and Kevin's Ice Cream for Snowflakes. Indulge in our deliciously sanctimonious flavors, such as Extinction Raspberryan, Cancel Culture and Cream, Cookie Double Warming, Non-Bindery, Woca-Cola, Ginger Nut, and Vanilla. All made from our organic gender fluid. Mike and Kevin's Ice Cream for Snowflakes.
That's rather good, isn't it?
Oh,
we did that for
that.
a show that we used to do. But yeah, Unilever, they have been accused in many respects, and particularly Ben & Jerry's over the course of the years, as just being ridiculous. But tell me, how do they actually make this Lux advert work then?
They call it, they just say that Lux provides women with, they use this expression, an armour to protect them against sexism. Don't ask me what the hell that means.
Is that here in this country they're saying this?
Yeah, but this is a massive example.
Do either of you ladies have Lux soap? Because it sounds like you should get some.
Well, you should get it, because you're with a bunch of sexists.
I'd rather your ice cream, I think.
Yeah, I think you're probably right.
I think it's one of the scourges of the world is corporate virtue signalling.
Yes, this new woke capitalism.
Because it's utter hypocrisy. All Unilever, like every other corporation, and I have no problem with this, all they're trying to do is make money. Don't fall for this nonsense, this woke rubbish.
And just admit that that's what you're trying to do. And that's
exactly.
Fine. I mean, apparently, one of the things that I discovered this week is the reason why there's so many electric cars on the roads at the moment is that all the company car fleets have gone electric. Because all the companies are full of these wokists who go, oh, well, if we're going to be giving people cars, we should give them electric cars. So thanks very much, guys. It means now that if you've got an electric car, you can't plug it into anything because there's no space anymore because all these companies have gone green, they've gone woke. And instead of having the old Ford Sierra to drive around in, pumping out, diesel fumes all over the place, you're all in Teslas. It's shocking. Anyway, coming up, we're going to be talking about space, the final frontier, or not, as some people might say. This is Britain, after all. Nothing works. Welcome back to Plank of the Week. We're halfway through, and already I think I know who's going to win it. But of course, it would be wrong for me to announce it yet, because then we'd just all have to go home and you'd have half an hour to do nothing with. So let us carry on. Amanda Devlin is here from The Sun.
Hello.
Give us your next nominee.
So it's another day, another politician that's letting us down.
Yes.
It's Andrew Bridgen, MP. He's been suspended as being a Conservative MP this week for absolutely crazy, outrageous comments comparing the COVID vaccine to that of the Holocaust.
Yeah. It was a bit from left field, that, wasn't it?
He's
sorry?
Yeah, he's an anti-vaxxer, but how did he jump to likening anything to do with the vaccine to
I'm not even
the
sure
murder
if he
of
is
6 million
actually
Jewish
to be
people?
described as that, because up until relatively recently, he didn't really talk much about the vaccine. He suddenly became interested in it, I would say, a few months ago.
He's ramping it up recently.
Yeah, he has been. I don't understand why,
Yeah, he seems to be really, very delusional and crazy. Maybe he's having chats with Prince Harry, and they're just
I don't know. I don't know what's convinced him to suddenly land upon this, because he's always been, he's been a frequent guest of mine, probably Kevin's as well. He was always a slight outrider in the Tory party. He was one of the backbenchers that people talked to quite a lot, because he seemed he was very pro-Brexit. He was one of the sort of architects of the European Research Group, I think, wasn't he? And so he was always keeping sort of, the Tories honest when Theresa May was in charge. Mm-hmm. But he seems to have just kind of gone off the scale on this one.
And he's let himself down because he, like you were saying, he's really good at putting across maybe a different point of view to that of his colleagues. Yeah. But to take it this far, it then makes a bit of a mockery and people won't listen to him, won't trust him.
Well, he started tweeting, just a few weeks ago, he started tweeting some quite weird stuff, from America, some of these kind of fake news outlets that are putting stuff out there. And, it seems as though he hasn't had a filter. I'm all for people talking about things that are supposedly not to be talked about. Yeah. But what I think he made the mistake of doing was kind of listening to every single person that was talking about what he thought was his big issue and just re-promoting it.
Well, they're panicking like mad, aren't they, that they're all going to lose their seats?
Yes.
So he's become totally unnerved.
Yeah.
And he doesn't know what he's saying.
Actually, yeah.
Doesn't know what he's really saying anymore. Yeah. It's not a. He's probably had a sort of test in his constituency to find out what they're interested in. He's probably talked to somebody who's told him that if we'd had the vaccine, I'm in my 60s and had that, they'd know all about me. We'll just look at the phone. But he's gone with them, thinking they're all going to vote for him. And this is the ridiculous situation we're in.
What's ridiculous?
Well, it is. Anyway, let's move on. Let's talk about the space mission instead, because it's far more interesting and far more funny. To be honest.
The first thing I'll say is that I was born a Gemini.
Were you?
And I grew up during the Apollo.
You're oversharing now. You've become Prince Harry. You've only been here half an hour.
Very important to me because I followed the whole of the Apollo programme, which, remember, they actually landed on the moon in 1969.
No, they didn't, did they?
Well,
I mean, you know that's not true. You know that's not true.
They did. But more importantly,
World Economic Forum made
more
that up.
importantly, what's been happening down in Cornwall
I've seen the flag.
has got more of Del Boy and Rodney than a whiff of Musk outdoing Richard Branson.
You can't.
It's unbelievable.
It's not Jeff Bezos, is it, really?
No, but you see, the problem you've got. So they've basically conned everybody here. I mean, they absolutely have.
It's all taxpayers' money, by the way.
Taxpayers' money. Well, first of all, they're pretending they only spent £8,000 on 100 policemen, policing the whole area, shutting a lot of it off and everything. It's all being paid by the local taxpayers there through the council. More importantly than that, though, they got a retired jumbo, renamed it Cosmic Girl. Everybody who is in the business knows that if they're going to have a horizontal launch, it's never as effective as having a vertical launch, which they can do in the Outer Hebrides up that way. They're going to have exactly that. Add to that, these satellites that were on board, and they've never even been into space before properly,
they still
were from some from Eastern Europe, some as well from the Middle East and everything. They've all gone. They've all lost
something from Qatar going up there, wasn't there?
Yeah, it's unbelievable. So what happened was, as far as I can see, this thing takes off. There's nothing to see. It's just like a jumbo jet taking off. Gets up there.
There's a load of bozos down there watching.
Fires from under the wing their little holder of all these different things. Gets into space, which is what Melissa, the spokesperson, said. She said, the spokeswoman she is really, but they had to say spokesperson.
You can't say that.
And she said, at least we got into space and a low Earth orbit.
But they didn't, though, did they?
They got
technically.
They technically just about got into space.
But then they lost all the satellites.
They've lost all the satellites. They've lost everything else. It's costing an absolute fortune. They're all as bad as each other on the whole of this thing. And the real problem is, I don't know if you know your Cornwall area very well, but there was a lovely local journalist who said brilliantly on regional television, Helston, we have a problem.
Helston.
Very good. Well, do you know what? I was
Newquay,
listening to the guy who was in charge of the programme on Tuesday, I think it was, talking after the night before and it all failed. And do you know who he reminded me of? Gareth Southgate. Because he was
talking of failure.
He was talking about this glorious failure. He said, the thing is, we were all in the same room watching it, immense feeling of sadness, but we were together and we hugged each other and we shared the moment. And I'm like, you failed, mate. That's what you did. I was surprised they didn't take the knee before, they started off on the mission.
All I've got to say for you about that, of course, everyone's worried about the Chinese going to the moon and everybody else is going to get involved in this commercial side of things. So to use something that Gareth Southgate would sort of say, Richard Branson, forget about the possibility of a moonshot. It ain't happening, son.
Didn't we have a British Mars mission not so long ago.
Yeah, they
we've had everything.
Got about as far as Brighton.
But didn't they lose the Beagle or something like that? Anyway, I can't
We
remember.
don't need another excuse to be laughing
I mean, I
stock
don't know
to the
why we're
world.
exploring
That's what
space
annoys
at the
me.
moment. We haven't got any money. You know, why are
Yeah.
we spending it on going to space? For God's sake,
ridiculous.
absolutely hopeless. Candice, one more for you. Who is it?
So this is picking on a primary school, but I think it's really important.
That's fair enough.
So there's a school in southeast London that was called Sir Francis Drake Primary, and they've decided to rename the school because apparently he has links to slavery. I think every heroic British figure has now got some dubious link somewhere and they have to be cancelled.
Yeah.
And I am so opposed to this. I don't want to downplay that this guy could have done utterly ruthless things, but that's not how you approach history. And I don't think they're teaching kids how to look at history intelligently and in a nuanced way and to look at these figures. I mean, he was an incredible person.
Look at him versus the old moonshot from Richard Branson. You know, he actually circumnavigated the globe
He
when nobody else had ever done it.
Yes.
I mean, imagine putting him in charge of the space mission. We'd all be living up there.
Yes, yeah. I mean, he was a highly competent man. I mean, this person defeated the Spanish Armada.
Good at bowls, wasn't he?
He was.
Very
Yes.
good bowls player as well.
He was really calm, apparently, before he went and did that great victory.
Good sportsman too. One for you.
Ho, ho.
So, and they've renamed the school Twin Oaks Primary.
Which is so
Which
boring.
is so bland. It is
Isn't
so bland.
Also, isn't the point about history that you teach people history through the figures of history, so
Yes.
that you can talk about Sir Francis Drake, and if he was a horrible man, then fine, let's talk about it.
Yes.
I
We're just
understand
rewriting it.
why he was. But I mean, when I was talking about this earlier in the week, I said he didn't do anything unusual during the time that he lived, because during the time that he lived, everybody was doing what he was doing. And if you were a merchant, or if you were somebody who went around exploring the world, there were every place you landed, there were people there trying to sell you slaves.
Yes, and they
apparently.
said it doesn't fit with our values. I'm like, of course not. He lived 400-500 years
Yeah.
ago. I mean, it's a completely different context.
Right.
And it's just this way now that people are approaching history. It's just trying to project our values onto it. And it's teaching kids that if it's inconvenient for you and you don't like it, you can just erase
Yeah.
it. And that is not, that you are not preparing kids for life.
There's a
if you
replica of
teach
his
them
ship
that.
down the road from our
Golden
office,
Hind,
the
yeah.
Golden
Yeah.
Hind, down by the river there. I dare say somebody will
small.
order that to be destroyed at some point.
This
soon,
has been
because,
this sort of thing's been going on for a long time. 'Cause quite a long time ago, first place I bought was a flat in the Soviet Republic of Islington, and just around the corner from me was a place called the Barnsbury Infant School. And this kind of dates it because at the time this person was venerated. She was later not venerated. But they changed, the Islington Council changed the name of Barnsbury Infant School to the Winnie Mandela Under 5 Resource Centre.
Rolls off the tongue,
like-
doesn't it? Rolls-
But it's like something out of a comedy show, isn't it? I mean, it's just
Never
ridiculous.
judge a person outside their time, but learn from them
Yeah.
for the right things. But if
ridiculous, yeah,
you
exactly.
still want to champion Francis Drake for the good things that he did,
Yeah.
why can't you do that?
I
as
used to
well?
go to a pub in New York called Drake's Drum, which was rather good, I seem to remember.
But the BBC won't be happy, by the way, until we've got Winston Churchill firmly categorised as one of history's great villains.
This is another one, and Horatio Nelson, these incredible figures who did
I
amazing
just turn a blind eye
things.
to that.
Well,
one.
funnily enough, it's interesting that you come onto the subject of heroic statues and statuary around London, because coming up in the next section, we'll get my final nomination, who may not be a million miles away from City Hall, right here in the capital city of London. Keep laughing. He's not doing it. Give him a nudge. Welcome back to Plank of the Week, the final part. This is where we decide who should be given the glorious award of Plank of the Week. And we've had some pretty good nominations so far. Funnily enough, I'm afraid I'm going to have to bring you guys my final one, which is a familiar figure who's been on it quite a lot in the past and always figures very highly at the end of Plank of the Year. It is Sadiq Khan, the Mayor of London. This is a man who I think is universally despised by everyone except for all the people that vote for him. I've never really understood that.
I've never met anyone who voted for him,
I've
though.
never met anyone that's voted for him, but somehow he keeps getting re-elected, and I think he wants to run again for a third term. Two reasons I wanted to nominate him this week, and then a third one came along just this morning. The first two are that he's going to be putting up council tax, basically. There's an amount of money that's paid by all the local councils around London to the central kind of London authority. That's all going to go up by an average of about 40 quid a year, as if we haven't got any more money. That's in addition to the ULEZ going up. It then transpires that London got a big award this week, and it wasn't anything to be proud of. It was to be the most congested city in the entire world. So more congested than anywhere you've ever been in the Far East, more congested than anywhere you've been in Brazil, Sao Paulo, where it apparently takes 4 hours to get across town. Londoners have spent an average of about a week in traffic for the whole of the year. It feels a lot worse than that. I drive a lot in London, and it's an absolute nightmare. But just as if all of that wasn't enough, it turns out that he's made a speech last night in which he's called for the immense damage that Brexit is doing to the country to be reversed, and he wants now for a pragmatic debate to take place on rejoining the European Union and the single market. And you just think, sorry, you know, so we've already had the democratic referendum, we've already voted to leave, we've already done all that, everybody can argue about. But, I mean, what you can't do is look at what's going on in the EU and go, oh, I wish we were more like France or Germany or Spain or Italy, where their economies are actually in worse state than ours, where, you know, politically they're nowhere, and where actually during COVID they did a lot worse than we did. So I don't know what he's playing at. But he clearly has worked out that he's not going to be in charge of the Labour Party. He's basically trying to put pressure on Keir Starmer to make Labour change their position on the EU.
Well, I mean, this is a speech that's designed to appeal to all the losers who vote for
the Remainers, who are all in London.
Yeah,
they're all in London.
The point about London is it has this image, oh, it's where all the rich people live. But there's something like 10 million people live here, and many of them, you know, are on the breadline. So it's actually the biggest...
Well, they are now, thanks to him.
They
started off being rich and then he started taxing them.
They didn't. You've been to Tower Hamlets. But, you know, these people, they're Londoners who vote for Sadiq Khan are turkeys who vote for Christmas, but they will keep doing it. Boris reversed the trend. There's a natural majority. They'll always vote for Labour over the Tories in London because most people here are poor.
OK. Now, I think it's time to pick the winner. And I'm going to surprise you, I think, all this week, because we did say that Prince Harry has won for the last 2 weeks. I don't think he should win it because I think that would be just too obvious.
No hat-trick.
Right? So I'm not going to give him the pleasure. I'm not giving him the pleasure of the hat-trick. I'm instead going to go with Mark Saggers and the UK Space Mission, the biggest planks of the week. These are the people who convinced not only everybody that they work with, but also the UK taxpayer to fund a failed mission into space. What a collection of planks. The UK Virgin Orbit, you are planks of the week. We'll see you next time